Brilliant. And I will say thank you and welcome to our first. Well, I think this is probably, we've been doing webinars and Q&A for a while, but this is probably the first Q&A session we've done exclusively for our NHS members. So for everyone that is on the session today, welcome. You're all, I'm sure you're all a part of our NHS program, which is absolutely brilliant. So thank you all for joining. We've hit 150, which I have to say is definitely a record for turnout for one of our Q&A and webinars. So Maria and Farihah, it's your first one, but clearly everyone heard you were joining. So they were keen to see what you had to say. But I think to kick things off, we'll do a round of introductions in a minute. But I'll just give everyone a bit of I guess, just a bit of housekeeping on how to answer questions and what the session is going to look like. So we have reached out to our membership over and our coaches over the last few weeks, and we wanted to know, what are the top questions that our NHS members ask, particularly in the first few weeks of the program. But what questions do they get asked as people on the NHS go throughout the program? So we've got a list of, let's say, 3 to 5 questions that we hope will kind of cover some of the top questions that we get, relating to carbohydrates, relating to lowering blood sugar levels when without losing weight, that kind of thing. So we've got a few questions we're keen to kind of cover, and then we're going to open it to the floor. So we've got an hour. We might not need an hour. I mean, we've got nearly 200 people here, so maybe we'll need more, but we'll keep it to an hour anyway. And I assure you, everyone, there's loads of people putting comments in the chat. Absolutely brilliant. So what I would say to everyone is, please definitely use the chat as like feedback and comments and what you're doing at the moment. Welcome everyone. That's brilliant. We do have a Q&A button. So you might be joining from your laptop, or you might be joining from your phone or tablet. And at the bottom of your Zoom, you should see a little button that says Q&A. And that's where we want the questions coming in. I will monitor the chat and try and get questions out of there. But as you can imagine, with 200 people on the call, it can be hard to kind of monitor the chat when there's loads of other comments coming in. So please use the Q&A button to ask your questions, and feel free to put them in there because they'll stay there until we've answered them. And just to let everyone know, if it's a medical question, we're unable to answer like a medical question. So let's say, I'm on X medication. How does this interact with this food? If it's anything relating to medical conditions or medical advice, we won't be able to answer it. As you can imagine, this is for informational purposes only and to provide a bit of extra lifestyle support while you're on the Second Nature program. So yeah, I hope that all makes sense. And with the Q&A, let me know if you've got any questions, obviously. Okay, great. You've got some questions coming in already. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. That's absolutely fantastic. So we'll do a quick round of introductions. So to start with, my name's Robbie. I'm a registered nutritionist. I've been with Second Nature for 7 years in December, which is mad. I used to be a health coach. I'm now on the content team. So a lot of the articles, you're right. You read on the program. Like I might have written them at some point in the past, and I also write a lot of articles for the website, and do stuff around them to support the marketing team and things like that. I've been a registered nutritionist since 2017. I did my master's in public health nutrition, but I've also got a bachelor's in sports and exercise science. So I'm kind of like, whilst I love nutrition and health and supporting people lose weight and get healthy, I've also got a passion for fitness and exercise as well. So that's me. And for anyone that was here prior to 6 o'clock, we now know my favorite meal is bolognese because my nan used to make it whenever we'd go and visit in Gloucester. Okay, right. So we'll go to Maria. Could you give yourself, give a quick introduction to everyone? And it'd be great to understand, obviously, not just what you do at Second Nature, but also I'd love to hear, I think everyone would appreciate, like, what motivated you to become a nutritionist and things like that. That'd be great.
Sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Maria, and I'm a registered nutritionist here at Second Nature. And actually, before moving into nutrition, I work as a pharmacist for over 10 years, specializing in drug safety.
Wow.
And then at some point in my career, I went through a period of high stress, starting having digestive problems, and that led me to research more about nutrition, lifestyle. And I realized that medicines do play an important role, but so much of our long-term health really comes down to our daily habits. So
Mm.
at some point, I decided I want to do this. I want to really help people build healthy habits so they can take care of their health long term. And this job is really personal to me because my grandmother lived with type 2 diabetes. So I saw firsthand the impact that this can have on life. So that's why I really feel strongly about prevention, and I'm really happy to be here today.
Absolutely amazing. Wow. So you had, was that 10 years as a pharmacist? Wow.
Yeah,
So you've got a pretty profound understanding of like the body and interactions through medication as well as like, moving into the lifestyle focus as well.
yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant. Fascinating. All right, Faria, could you give yourself a quick introduction as well?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Farihah. I have a background in psychology and education, and then I sort of was really interested in the whole like psychology of eating, and that was sort of like where my passion came from. And then I ended up sort of after teaching, I was like, okay, I really want to educate people on how to eat healthily. Then I kind of went into a master's in human nutrition, and after a period of losing weight for myself, sort of thing, I realized like this is like a weight loss program is not just it's not just physically what you're eating and everything. It's more so on your like lifestyle and what you actually put into your body as well as what you put out. So then that kind of led me into a path of second nature, and then I'm here. So then I started to I really believe in the idea of sort of like lifestyle changes, and I love working here. I've been here for a year now.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much, both. Yeah, so we're getting some comments in the chat about sound. I'm really sorry, everyone, for those who are struggling with the sound. I can't say it's on our end. It might be something to do with your laptop. It might be a connection with Bluetooth. It might be an issue with your Zoom preferences. When you joined, you might have select sound preferences. So, yeah, we're getting some people saying sound is fine, others like no sound. So I would, yeah, unfortunately I can't fix it on our end. So you might have to like exit, rejoin, and select your sound preferences, and hopefully, yeah, hopefully you can get that sorted. Right, this is excellent. We've got nearly 250 people on the Q&A, which is absolutely brilliant, absolutely fantastic. So to start off, we are getting some questions into the Q&A. So thank you all. That's really great. But I think we, as I mentioned at the start, we just had a load of questions that we always get. So there's always, and fair enough, there's a lot to have, like for when people join, like they get referred by their GP, maybe their diabetes nurse at their practice, or maybe a health coach at their practice. And there's a lot to take in the first, when you join, and there's a lot of confusion around type 2 diabetes and diet, and obviously at Second Nature we try and be sensible and pragmatic and provide like real practical advice that people can actually follow. But even on our program, I can appreciate a lot of things can still be confusing when there's so much to take on. So we wanted to tackle some of the big questions, and then we'll get to yours in a minute. And I think the one that always comes up, particularly in relation to type 2 diabetes and preventing diabetes, with the focus on sugar and the notion in diabetes care to count carbohydrates, it can leave the impression that that carbohydrates are bad. So I think to Maria Faria, I think the first question we should answer is like, can our members still eat carbohydrates even though we're trying to support them to lower their blood sugar levels down over time? Can they still include carbohydrates in their diet? I think that would be a great place to start.
Shall I answer that? So definitely you can still eat carbohydrates. I think it's more so understanding that at the end of the day, our body does need carbohydrates. It's an energy source. It's simple sugars where your brain prefers it. It's the most preferable sugar source, like energy source. But it's what's important is to realize the different types of carbohydrates. We recommend mostly having whole wheat, complex carbohydrates, which come from legumes, brown bread, sort of brown pastas, and sort of like things like that, because they are full of fiber. The difference between a simple carbohydrate, which is things like your sugar or like your fizzy drinks and stuff like that, is they once you eat them, they go straight away into the bloodstream. So then that's where your sugar spikes go up. Whereas if you have complex carbohydrates, because of the fiber, they're slow releasing, they're slowly digested, helping you feel fuller for longer when it comes to your meals. And also you don't have that sort of constant spike of going up and down. So that's why we recommend you to have complex carbohydrates. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you're not allowed to have white bread or stuff like that, because at the end of the day, food is there to be enjoyed. We shouldn't be, say we're not as an approach, we're not saying don't have this instead. If you want to have that, think about what you're going to pair your meals with. Are you having it with some protein? Maybe you're having a sandwich. Can you add some chicken to that? Maybe some salad and lettuce and stuff like that. So I think you can definitely still have carbohydrates.
Wicked. Maria, anything to add alongside that?
Yeah, just to add that many people find challenging at first to include wholemeal or whole brown rice or pasta because they don't really like the taste. And what we recommend is sometimes starting just simply by mixing white carbs with with wholemeal carbs, because this can ease the change a bit, make it more manageable, and really understand why we recommend complex carb can really help also with the change, because otherwise it's just like another food rule that we put on
Yeah,
ourselves without really understanding why we recommend that. So
yeah,
really
absolutely.
understanding the impact that this can have on blood sugar level and why it matters.
Absolutely. So I think, like in summary, yes, absolutely. Like carbohydrates is still an important part of our diet. We recommend having more carbohydrates that are richer in fiber, the complex carbohydrates. So your whole grains and your legumes and things like that, potatoes as well. They're obviously rich in fiber and other micronutrients. So that sounds brilliant. And obviously the Second Nature balanced plate models. So
Yeah.
hopefully everyone here has read those articles at the start of the program. I would recommend going back as well. If you're still unsure, head back to the prepare articles and the week one articles. We've got articles dedicated to our nutrition guidelines where we talk about carbohydrates making up around 25% of our plate. With a list of carbohydrates we recommend having more. And Maria, I think that's a really good tip for that transition. If you're used to having white pasta, mixing it and having 50-50 white and brown, and with the rice you can do that as well. So I think that's also a really good practical tip for people. We are getting some follow-up questions in here, which I think are quite good. Because there was one around, I heard around the best time of day to eat carbohydrates, which I think is an interesting question because I think there's a lot of noise on social media around trying to be precise with your nutrition and precise on the exact times of day you should eat carbohydrates. So, Maria, Faria, do you have any thoughts on that?
I personally would recommend when to have carbohydrates or have a balanced plate, like Robbie was saying about the balanced plate for every single meal, and really tuning into your hunger levels. I think we kind of bang on about this a lot in Second Nature, where it's like really tuning into your hunger. Am I actually hungry, or am I just eating out of boredom? Why am I eating this meal? What's this providing my body? And actually really asking questions for yourself, and then that will help you stop the food noise. So it's not so much about the best time of day. It's just more so if you are having breakfast, think about it. What you have, is this your first meal of the day? What should you be adding to it? What could you take away from it? Really question yourself. And there's not so much about the best time of day. It's more so, why are you eating this? I would say, to be honest.
Really, really good point. Really, really good point. I think that's another thing is what you guys were both saying earlier with when we focus on carbohydrates, because it's obviously important to understand their relationship with our blood sugars. Like our approach to Second Nature is much more about what you can add, right? So as you guys were saying earlier, it's like, okay, so yeah, carbohydrates are part of the meal, but what are we adding to it to nourish our bodies and actually add enjoyment? So a nice protein source, obviously including fat in the meal. Fat is obviously incredibly important for hunger and satiety, but also, adds flavor, so it makes food delicious. And then obviously bulking out with vegetables and fiber too. So that's great. There are more questions coming in. I think this is like final one on carbohydrates, I think, for now. But a lot of people obviously are, particularly in the UK, I think, particularly around like breakfast and like with porridge and cereal, maybe with muesli or granola. A lot of people will flavor, add sweetened maple syrup or honey to their breakfast. So, what would be our thoughts around that? Like, what would be we say to people whether they're saying like if they say is maple syrup okay, is honey okay? Like, how would we respond to that?
Should I go, Fire?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
Okay, so typically we recommend to reduce added sugar like maple syrup and honey because they can tend still to spike our blood sugar levels. So of course it's all about balance. So it's not cutting them out from our diet, but in terms of daily meals and especially breakfast, we can find our other ways to sweeten our meals, which also add other nutrients as well as fiber. For example, for porridge or breakfast in general, general, we typically recommend to add fruit or to add mashed bananas or berries to porridge, which add a natural sweetness and also fiber, which helps again with blood sugar levels and also to improve satiety throughout the morning. So typically it really comes to individual preferences, of course, but as a general recommendation, we recommend to limit this added sugar in the diet overall.
Excellent, excellent. I think generally as well, there's a relationship with sugar in the brain and reward, right? So I think one of the things we try and encourage on the program is, eating sweeter foods intentionally, like mindful eating, like you mentioned earlier, right? And being really intentional about our eating decisions. And one thing that added sugars like honey and syrup and things like that can do is almost just train a behavior rather than adding much nutritional value or intention to the meal. It might be that after many years of adding honey to breakfast, we do that just because it's a habit and that's what we do, rather than actually needing or desiring that. So I think, I think that's also an important part of the whole extra sweet stuff, particularly honey and syrup, right? Like that is they're incredibly sweet. So, okay, I think I'm keen to move on because I think we've discussed, we can always come back. And just to everyone who's putting questions and comments in the chat, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Just to let you know, we've only got an hour. So if we don't get to your questions, I really apologize. What I'm trying to do is see if there's any themes and trying to group them together, and hopefully we can cover as much of it as we can. All I would say as well is after tonight, if your question doesn't get answered, but you're still stuck and you're struggling, reach out to your health coach. Like, you've got your health coach in the one-to-one chat in the app. Definitely message them, let them know. I asked this question in the webinar I attended, I didn't get answered. I'd need some support. I'm trying, etc. They're there to support you. Like Maria, like Farihah, they're health coaches on our NHS program. You've also got your groups and other communities within Second Nature too. You can reach out for support there. So we will try and cover as much as we can, of course. Right. So I think for the next 15 minutes or so, we'll concentrate on the questions we've got from our side, and then we'll definitely jump into the Q&A and see what we've got there. Okay, so this is something we definitely get a lot, and I think this is fair enough. We've got many parents here, many parents with hungry kids or grandparents who still live at home with different generations. And a lot of the questions one of the questions that the coaches get all the time is adapting meals for the whole family. So if you're a parent and you've been diagnosed with prediabetes and you join the program and we're recommending you to eat a certain way, but then maybe your kids are growing up and obviously they have a higher tolerance for carbohydrates and a greater necessity for them to support that growth, how do you balance it all out? So team, to you both, managing, I guess, Second Nature's nutritional guidelines and adapting meals and recipes to suit the whole family while still sort of trying to make those improvements on our side. How should they approach that?
I'll go first. So I would recommend you don't need to make a separate meal for yourself and a separate meal for the kids. Definitely, how I would approach it is, if you, as a family, if you make a meal regularly, like, there's, you love, for example, Robbie's bolognese, you absolutely love it. You want to make it all the time, but then think about how can you add the balanced plate into that meal. Could you add more veggies? Where are the carbs coming from? And things like that, and really question yourself when it comes to making meals. And especially when it comes to the kids, get them involved, especially if they're fussy. And you can always definitely get them involved and pick out their vegetables, get them to sort of help out and everything. And they're more likely to taste it and eat it, and then they're more likely to, because they made it as well, and make a big family affair of it. And also, especially when it comes to the meals that in a regular basis, that sometimes we're all busy, sometimes we're working, we don't have time. So then if you sort of make base ingredients that are ready to go, so then you can just pre-chop your veggies and everything, and then you can just add them into the meal that you're already having. And then another idea, which I absolutely love, is, for example, in my house, we like I said, we love curry and stuff. So obviously we sort of pre-prep a curry. So for example, we're having a chicken curry. So then my mum would say, we'd think about okay, where could the veggies come in? Could I add some baby spinach to this, or can I add some bell peppers or something? And then add that in. Where are my carbs coming from? Okay, this is my rotis or my chapatis. Okay, so, or could I have rice with this? And can I even sneak in veggies to the rice? So really think about how you can add more veggies. Where are the healthy fats? Are you cooking in oil? Are you drizzling some oil into your salads and stuff? And then the more by making meals that you already like, you're more realistic. It's more realistic that you'll stick to it because you're already familiar with these meals. We have loads of recipes on our app, so you can always go and if you need some inspiration. But I wouldn't say make a whole brand new meal plan that you've never seen before, you've never tasted before, you don't even know you like, because you're not going to stick to it, because you might like it for one day, but then it's like, oh, okay, maybe I don't really want this. I want my, I don't know, like your porridge again. But then because you've made like a week's worth of granola and that you're not really like it, so then how are you going to manage that? So then sort of really think about what your lifestyle is. So I think it's a really good tip to use the ingredients that you already like and then plan it out. So for example, like with Robbie's bolognese, you could, if you've got the kids, maybe you've got like the pasta, you can add more pasta for the kids portion, but then more sauce for yourself and add some more veggies to that. So yeah, that's how I would go about it.
Nice, nice. So still you still making the same foods, but thinking about, I guess it's like putting your portions together at the dinner
Yeah.
table, how you're preparing your plate versus your kids, but it's the same
Mhm.
recipe, hypothetically, and then technically, and then also what can you add more to, right? Like
Yeah.
what? So that's a big thing at Second Nature. It's not what we're taking away. It's like what can you add more to make this more
Yeah.
nourishing and enjoyable. So I think that's great. Maria, do you have anything to add alongside that?
Yeah, I think sometimes for some people it's difficult when they prepare a recipe to say, okay, I don't really know how to adapt the recipe to the recommendation. So what we generally recommend is to, okay, prepare the recipes as it is. And then when you serve yourself on the plate, you can visually see if the food groups proportion are adequate or not. And you can also use your hand size as a guide. This is really helpful, especially if you have different family members who are different requirements. So, for example, for when I have dinner with my sister and my niece, we often use the hand size for carbohydrates or in general for pasta, because this allows us to meet everyone's requirement while still having the same meal. So adapt the portion sizes.
Nice. That sounds brilliant. I think, like you said, the hand
Yeah.
portion guide. So
Yeah.
again, I'd send people back to the first few weeks articles. We have a hand portion guide which really helps to break down the balanced plate. And so instead of counting and weighing and doing any of those things that we want to move away from for sustainability and enjoyment, like life is too short to be counting calories and weighing food.
Yeah.
A quick recap: it's every meal, we want roughly one fistful of carbohydrates. So if you're wondering what does 25% of my plate look like, oh, I'm serving up my bolognese with my family, as you were mentioning earlier, Faria, or your chicken curry. For yourself, it might be one fistful of carbohydrates, typically one open hand of protein. So that might be a chicken, might be yogurt or something like that. And then two open hands of veggies. So a big 50% portion of veggies in there. And obviously, I think what you were saying there, Faria, earlier as well, is like,
Fun
how can
size.
you oh yeah, and one
Yeah.
thumb-sized portion of fat as well. So don't forget the fat. That's often included in the protein
Yeah.
sometimes. So
Yeah.
let's say you're making salmon. Salmon
Mm.
is protein and fat, so you don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to add more fat on top of that. But yeah, roughly one size of fat too. And yeah, what you were saying earlier, Free, about like sort of it's almost like sneaking in vegetables. So let's say
Mm.
you've got fussy kids, you want to eat more vegetables. Let's say you want to add more spinach to a curry. You could dice it down really small, like blend it. My brother actually, when he makes a bolognese, he's got a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. They're not too fussy, but they are a bit fussy. And he blends their bolognese sauce. So he makes bolognese with onion and garlic and carrots and mushrooms and peas, and he make like chucks loads of veggies in there. Then he blends the sauce and adds it to the pasta. So they just think
Yeah.
it's a red sauce, a bit of
Yeah.
cheese on top, and they're like, "This is wonderful." So if you do have the kids, you can always make the same, I guess, the same like curry or whatever, but then blend it for them. So they
Yeah.
just it might make it easier.
And not to forget your herbs and spices, like are your
Yes.
friends, so you can always season a lot with like sort of like oregano is amazing.
Absolutely, yeah. Like use the herbs and spices and things like that. That is brilliant. Okay, right. I hope that covers that. So let's move on to we're talking about the balanced plate. Okay, so I think one thing we have a lot on Second Nature is people who've come from loads of diets in the past. They've tried Weight Watchers, they've tried Slimming World, they've tried the local slimming clubs. Maybe they followed strict diets online. And it's obviously not all about losing weight on Second Nature. There's many people on Second Nature who are trying to reduce their blood sugar levels without losing weight, which we'll cover in a minute. But there's many people who have tried a lot to get healthy and lose weight in the past, and then they come to us, and maybe there's an overhang of sort of the diet mentality, let's say, and then our guidelines can kind of look like rules because
Mhm.
it could paint the picture that you have to eat like this all the time. So I guess, Maria Freer, what are your thoughts on helping people kind of shift their mindset, everyone around the balanced plate model and our nutrition guidelines, so they're more flexible and like less like rigid rules? Like, how would you approach that?
I would personally see like I was mentioning with the family meals and everything, when it comes to any meal, like even if it's a snack, just really think about how balanced is this. Like I know we've got loads of guides on healthy eating on snacks where we recommend if you're having like say for example a fruit, could you pair something like a yogurt or some like nuts and seeds with that because the healthy fats from those will help you feel fuller for longer. So now people can think that, oh, if I'm going to have an apple and some peanut butter, is that technically a rule? But then because you can adapt that with anything, like if with the balance plate, it's because it's so flexible as opposed to a rigid rule, it should be a tool. So when you look at any meal that you're out to eat, whether like, whether you're going out for a Nando's or like you just going out, then if you look at, okay, where's my protein coming from? Could I add some more salad to this? Could I add some healthy fats? And even if you don't have like a really picture perfect meal, think about like your next meal. Could you make that more balanced? So as opposed to feeling like it's a rigid rule, like you have to stick to it each meal, just really be flexible with it because at the end of the day, food's there to be enjoyed. It's more than just what we're eating, it's the memories we're making, it's the, who we're eating with and everything. So by thinking, changing your mindset around that and really reframing that idea of like, this is a rule, just reframing it to a way of this is my new lifestyle. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfect today. We always have tomorrow or the next meal. So really thinking about it in that sense and really using the balance plate as a tool as opposed to a rigid rule, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. Maria, what would you add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that the main shift that we need to make, especially when coming from a diet mentality, is this idea that healthy eating means that we have to be perfect with our meals. Instead, what we really want to encourage is balance overall. So it's important to remember that it's the overall pattern of our meals that matters. At the end of the day, it's not the specific meal, it's not the specific food. So it for some people this is really difficult because when we are used to food rules and restrictions for a long period of time, it's really difficult to say, okay, I can have this without feeling guilty about having this. But it's really down to understand why it's important to have a balance when this matters, especially in terms of long-term maintenance of our results of our health.
Absolutely. So it's all about flexibility, right? Is
Mhm.
and like it's almost like you have to start with the mindset of you're allowed to eat whatever you want. I remember if you it's like you're allowed to eat whatever you want, but then when you learn about healthy eating and you learn about how food nourishes you, you make that choice to eat more healthily because you want to, because you realize how it's nourishing your body and keeping your blood sugars down and giving you more energy for your family, and you can connect it to your deeper reasons and motivations for sustaining a healthier lifestyle. So I remember a dietitian that used to work here, Barry. If anyone has TikTok, you can go to the top of our TikTok page, and Barry's doing the video around weight loss plateaus. But she once said to me a good activity that I think we did in a mindful eating webinar years ago was to say to people, someone, if chocolate is your favorite food, imagine a life where all you ate was chocolate. Like, would you want to do that?
Yeah.
And obviously, it makes you think and reflect. Well, no, because you wouldn't really feel that great.
Mhm.
And actually, you want to enjoy chocolate when the moment is right. But most of the time, when we nourish ourselves with healthy foods and whole foods based around the balanced plate model, we feel better. We have more energy. We have more energy for our kids, our grandkids, etc. And then those moments where we do enjoy chocolate come into it, and it feels great. Um, okay, so right. I'm keen to carry on the theme of the balance plate for now. We actually we have had some comments on in the chat around protein, and I think we've talked a lot about what we adding in. So obviously, I do a lot of people coming onto the program have probably come from where a quite a carbohydrate heavy diet where maybe their meals are 60, 70, 80% carbohydrates with small amounts of fiber and protein. And then most of the time, really, it's not, we're just trying to change that balance, right? So I think in regards to the balance plate, we've got lots of people saying like, they're cutting down on the carbohydrates, but they're still feeling hungry. They're unsure how much protein is too much, or, am I eating too much protein? So I guess like, just to summarize this specific topics around the balanced plate model to the both of you, like how would you, obviously, we talked about the hand sized portion of
Mm.
protein earlier, right? But how would you encourage people to experiment with the balanced plate model, with their favorite meals? I don't know if there's anything in addition to what we've already talked about, but in your coaching, how do you support people in those early days when they're transitioning over? Like, what are some simple practical tips you can give people along with the articles and stuff?
I always say if you can try, if it's possible, if you're cooking a meal, get all your ingredients out in front of you and then really ask yourself, like, where's my protein? Where's my carbs coming from? With carbohydrates, where are my healthy fats and stuff? So then that way you can physically see it and then you can see, okay, maybe I can add some more chickpeas with my lentils, for example, if you're making a dal or something, then you can actually see physically and then you can pick out and then always don't be afraid to sometimes experiment with different protein sources. Like I know like recently there's a big surge of like tofu and tempeh and stuff, and they might be quite new and you might be quite like, oh, I don't know whether I'll taste this or not, but try it. Don't be afraid to try because you might find your new favorite protein source, I guess.
Yeah, so true. I love that. Like getting out, and it's like, someone said to me a while ago, it's like with the balance plate, it's like we always, before we leave the house, it's always phone, wallet, keys. It's like putting into that mentality, like you putting out your ingredients, and it's like, right, protein, carbohydrates, fats, veggies, right, like fiber,
Yeah.
like ticking them off almost. So it's like like you were saying earlier, using the balance plate model as that foundation, and then to build on, and then it's about experimentation, right? I think that's one thing we always want to encourage. Maria, how about you? How are you like day to day in the early days of the program? People are just starting, they're looking at the balance plate model. What are some of the things you recommend alongside that?
I think experimenting, as Freya said, is a big one because it's always helpful to actually start making a change and see the difference that the change makes actually. So, for example, one thing that I often ask people is, what do you eat for breakfast? And most people have a very carb heavy breakfast and they tend to be like hungry very short after breakfast. So I say, what about making one small change and try to increase the protein portion of breakfast and see if this makes a difference for you or not? So instead of thinking about overall everything, like really making these small steps, as we said earlier, really see what we can add and how this we can benefit us in the
Love
like
that. Love
daily
that.
from day to day.
Yeah, so it's like just one thing at a time almost. So if it's like you're really
Mhm.
struggling, you don't know where to start, just one thing. So it might be, let's say there's a big bowl of porridge, someone just has porridge and honey. It's like, don't change it, but could you just add some yogurt alongside to add more protein? Could you just add a handful of berries or a handful of nuts and seeds? One thing at a time and see how you go. I think that's great. And I think that approach always takes the pressure off a little bit, right? It's
Mhm.
like, don't try and overhaul everything this week, what is one thing you can add to your breakfast? And like we said with Second Nature's approach, it's add, not detract,
Yeah.
not take away. What can you add that will add more nutrition and nourishment to your meals? That's brilliant. Okay, right, team. All right, there's so many questions and comments coming in. I can't thank everyone enough. It's absolutely brilliant. We're just going to touch on one more topic, and then I will jump into the Q&A and we'll try and get through as many of the questions as much as possible. But one thing as well, obviously this is a very multicultural country now. There's a very multicultural program. We have people from all over the world joining Second Nature, which is absolutely brilliant. And it's obviously inspiring for us because we get to learn more about how different places around the world cook and eat, and it helps us make more recipes and things like that. So, in terms of the balanced plate model, like what are your top tips for helping people take their cultural preferences? Because I think one thing that the science and nutrition institutions around the world have been actually a bit condescending about is saying to everyone, yeah, the Mediterranean diet's the healthiest diet in the world, which, Maria, I know you're from the Mediterranean. It's obviously a healthy diet.
Sure.
But to suggest that the Mediterranean diet is the only healthy diet in the world is obviously it's nonsense, right? And we want people to enjoy their cultural food. Sure, experiment if you want to, but we want them to enjoy their cultural food. So, how can we help people use the balanced plate model to still enjoy their cultural preferences? How do you guys see that?
So I would this obviously culture is very close to my heart and everything, but like obviously for me, like coming from a Pakistani household, we have lots of different foods, not just like, you know, the typical curries or and stuff. We have like loads of rice dishes and everything. And like I was saying before, it's about really that word flexible. We, you know, what can we add to this meal? What can we, you know, instead of taking away, could we add some more veggies and stuff? And speaking to your health coach, just reach out to them and say like, oh, I'm from this background or this, or I'm even curious about this cuisine. And we've got loads of guides from Jamaican, from like Italian. We've got all these different cultural guides that we'll be more than happy to share with you because it's really about, like how Robbie was saying, not the Mediterranean diet isn't the only healthiest diet in the world. That there are other plenty of others. Like for example, like the Japanese cuisine. Like I'm a big little sushi fan, where you can, you know, just mix and match and just add your rice and stuff like that. And really, like I was saying, just break apart the bowl. Just think about where your ingredients are coming from, where's the carbohydrates, where's the protein and stuff, and really think about adding to this meal. Like, and just because it's flexible, it's not a rule. Just because one of your classic cultural meals isn't more to our, you know, like a healthy balanced plate, but sure, you can add something else to it. Maybe you can add some vegetables, maybe you can have something to the side. So really be flexible with it and reach out to your health coach. That's my best advice.
Absolutely. It sounds like really it's like having the confidence to say and the reassurance that it is possible. Like don't
Yeah.
think like you said, so maybe traditional cultures, maybe some of the recipes have more heavy on the noodles, heavy on the
Yeah.
rice. It doesn't mean you can't adapt them to suit what you need right now.
Mm.
So I think that's definitely a great point. And like you said, Maria, definitely reach out to your health coach if you're struggling. Maria, do you have anything to add alongside that too?
Yeah, just to mention that it's really about having a healthier diet, but it's also about having a diet that we can sustain and having cultural background, considering the cultural background, but also food preferences, food habits in general, what we like, what we don't like is really important for to maintain this diet long term. So as Faria said, don't hesitate to reach out to your health coach if you have any questions or if you want any suggestion on how to adapt your meals based on what you typically consume, because I see that members sometimes feel like they feel this pressure to try our recipes when
Mm.
joining Second Nature. But
Yes.
the reality is that we want to encourage a balanced approach, starting from what you have, what you like. So it's always getting better to personalize your experience on the Second Nature program. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. 100%. I think you're right, Maria. And I think it's actually something we need to improve on our side is we have the meal planner on the app, we have our recipes and we talk about the balanced plate, but it's not immediately obvious that people can just use their same cultural foods and the foods they enjoy and just adapt them to suit these guidelines. It's something we definitely need to improve on in the future for sure. And while we're on this topic, I've just in the background start just put these together very quickly. I haven't done this completely. Our designer has done an amazing job, and one of our health coaches has been working with our design team over the past few years to put together a large series of cultural balance plate models. So this is only four examples that we've got. We've got I think 10 to 20 now, and we've taken cultures from around the world, and we've said, okay, what are their favorite recipes, typical staple foods? How can they fit into the balanced plate model? And I think rather than like Marie and Faria are saying, it's about realizing this is possible. Like that readjustment is possible. It might be that cultural recipes are more carbohydrate and starch heavy. It doesn't mean we can't rejig that slightly and add more protein, add more vegetables, like this Caribbean balance plate. We've also got the South Indian balance plate. We've also got the British fry up, would you believe, balance plate. Absolutely brilliant. This is my favorite. I think it's wonderful. We've also got a Christmas dinner one coming out soon. And we've got the Far East Asia balance plate. There's many, many more. So I just wanted to share that to everyone. If you want access to those, obviously at some point we will have them directly in the app. But please ask your health coach. And I think, like Maria and Faria have been saying throughout, and we've been saying, please reach out to your health coach. They are honestly all incredible nutritionists, dietitians with years of experience, and they are there to support you. So please definitely reach out. Okay, great team. Right, we're encroaching on 20 to 7 already. We've only got 20 minutes left. I can't believe it. Time has absolutely flown. So I am going to jump into the Q&A. and try and answer as many questions that you've sent through already. We've got 52, and obviously, as you can imagine, everyone, we won't be able to get through all of them, so I really apologise. However, I think there's a bit of, I can see a bit of a theme. I'm going to try and tackle the themes as much as possible. And there's one that's coming up that we actually noted down as well, which is around weight loss, blood sugar, and whether you essentially how to improve blood sugar levels without losing weight. For some people, I've seen comments in the chat, it's I've lost weight, I don't need to lose any more, so what do I do now? But also people who have joined don't need to lose weight, essentially, but need to lower their blood sugars and develop healthier habits. So I think Maria Faria will start with the first one, which is people join the program. It's obviously weight loss focused, which is fair enough. Again, on our side, that's what we need to improve as well to make it more personalized to everyone. But how can we improve our blood sugar levels and be healthier without necessarily supporting weight loss? Yeah, that'd be great to discuss.
Yeah, I'll go. So weight loss can really help with managing blood sugar level. It's important to remember that it's not the only path to managing prediabetes. And actually, many members join with weight maintenance or even weight gain goals. So it's really down to individual needs and health context. It's not a one size fits all when it comes to health and weight. And in general, we'd say that blood sugar levels are influenced by many factors, and this will definitely be explored more in the upcoming webinar in a few weeks. And the key to effective management is to achieve a healthier lifestyle overall. So in terms of the program, although the program does include elements of weight management because of the benefits that weight loss has on prediabetes, our main focus remains on encouraging building sustainable habits, because this is what actually help you not only lowering blood sugar levels, but also maintaining this progress long term. Because the maintenance is a phase where people are, a bit unsure of what to do, how do I sustain actually these habits now that I achieved my goal, that I lost weight, or that I lowered my blood sugar levels. And in terms of nutrition, the balanced plate model that we discussed is actually really valuable, even if weight loss is not a goal. The main difference comes to portion size and also overall intake. So if your goal is to maintain weight, we typically recommend to slightly increase the protein portion, because protein is really important not only for muscle mass, but also to improve satiety, and has a minimal effect on blood sugar levels compared to carbohydrate. So this can mean increase the protein portion in main meals, also including high protein snacks between meals. The good thing about Second Nature, I think, is that the guidelines are really flexible, as we said, so they can be adapted based on individual goals, whether it's a maintenance goal or a loss or a gain. And I really recommend, again, to reach out to your head coach, because we are here to provide tailored guidance to everyone, depending on your goal. And lastly, I would say that, as you may have seen from the core phase, we believe that it's important to look at health from a holistic perspective. That's why we don't only focus on exercise and nutrition, but we also discuss mindset, stress, and sleep, because these are really, really important when it comes to blood sugar management. And this is something that is often overlooked when it comes to prediabetes, because people often think about the diet, but in reality, there are other factors in our lifestyle that can really impact their blood sugar levels as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I guess in sum, it's all encompassing, right? So it's focusing on the overall lifestyle. And also, like you mentioned about the balanced plate model, it's a good foundation. But if your goal is weight maintenance, for sure, you might need to increase portion size, particularly with protein and possibly with fat as well, and possibly with carbohydrates too. So let's say the foundation is roughly 25%. It might be when you get to a weight maintenance level, you might be able to just increase that slightly, but we would say aim for that protein and fat, and particularly fiber. And I guess, like you said, Maria, if you're still struggling, reach out to the health coach. It's like what they're for, right? Brilliant. I love that. Farihah, do you have anything to add around that? Anything?
Yeah, it was just seconding what Maria was saying. Like, if we obviously health coaches are there, we've got loads of guides as well to help with this maintenance phase and even weight gain. So it's definitely worth reaching out because then, if you, especially if you're not sure about, you kind of want to increase your portions, but you don't know where to start. Then again, you can work through it with your health coach. We can say, okay, I want to increase my protein, but I don't know how much. So really speaking to them and just really, we've got support that way, and then the articles is there to help you.
So the support is there. Really important message. Absolutely. The support is there. Absolutely. And I think as well, like we discussed earlier, experimentation, right? Like I think, look, I've been a registered nutritionist for 8 years, and I'm still experimenting with my diet. Like I still don't, and obviously as we age,
Needs change,
our
yeah.
needs change, right? Our taste changes, and like, I'm still adapting as I go. I think when you're interested in nutrition and lifestyle, and you want to adopt a healthy diet, it's like you're never going to reach perfection, right? But be curious, just experiment and see how it goes. You're never failing. You're just learning, I think, is the important message, right? So if you had a bit more protein one day and it doesn't quite work over a few days and you're
Mhm.
still losing weight, well, okay, that's a lesson learned. You probably maybe you're eating enough protein, but maybe there's more fat to add, more fiber, something like that. So yeah, I think that's great. No, guys, we're getting also a lot of questions around snacks, and it kind of ties in well, I think, with the overall piece, right? We're talking about the balanced plate model, and I think one of the habits we recommend, right, is 3 meals a day. So we always say breakfast, lunch, dinner as a good foundation. It helps to keep our blood sugars stable. It helps to keep our hunger lower. I know there's a lot of influencers online who will say, right, we used to fast all the time, like back when we were hunter gatherers, we would only eat 1 meal a day. And I think, right, that's true, but we don't live back then. We live in the real world in 2025, and if we want to keep hunger at bay, it's much easier, let's say, to have those 3 meals a day. But where do snacks come in? Because we've got the balanced plate model. We talked about it, 25% carbs, 50% vegetables, 1 thumb of fat, and open hand size of protein. That's a good foundation for those 3 meals a day. But how do snacks come in? What would a healthy or balanced snack look like? What would we recommend there? And I think we've obviously talked about weight loss, weight maintenance, maybe providing a little bit of guidance around there. What does it look like?
Want to go, Faria?
Okay, yes, I was just going to say, in terms of snacks, I think it's important to, I mean, I understand, are you genuinely hungry or are you just snacking out of habit? And what are you reaching for? Are you reaching out for like those like milk chocolate biscuits? And then and in terms of like, could it be more so like, your actual meals are not providing the full satisfaction and like fullness that you actually want normally, and that's why your body's suddenly craving sugar because you're having that energy slump. So by asking these, being like Robbie was saying, being curious and seeing what you are reaching for, having that moment of mindfulness of just pausing before you go for that crisp packet and just thinking, why am I eating this? Can I do something else? Or can I have a glass of water? And if you do end up wanting a snack, which is perfectly fine at the end of the day, not every day is the same. Maybe you've had like a bit of you've just been to the gym and you're more energetic, for example, like you really need to eat something. Then maybe you could have like maybe an apple paired with some peanut butter or a healthy source of fat or some eggs or something, and really look at how balanced your meals, well, your snack is. I know we mentioned meals a lot, but if we look at our snacks, they can be also balanced. So look at if this is your carbs, can you add a protein source to this? Could you add some maybe healthy fats? This not only helps you feel fuller for longer, but it'll help you feel more satisfied overall. And then and then instead of having a whole bag of crisps, for example, if you did go for that, could you maybe have a few crisps, so that makes sense? And then instead of having the full thing, and could you share it? Could you enjoy it that way, or could you even have a glass of water? I think sometimes we often mistake thirst for hunger, and then we end up being, oh, I'm really hungry, but in reality you were actually really thirsty. So have a glass of water, take a moment, take a deep breath, and just sort of ask yourself, are you actually hungry, or could you wait it out, sort of thing? And then look at your meal. How balanced is your actual meal that caused you to be hungry in the first place, if that makes sense?
It does make sense. It's investigating, right?
Yeah.
Again, applying some curiosity to the situation, reflecting on, okay, if I'm physically hungry between meals, why is that? Again, no judgment. I think everyone, just highlighting the curiosity piece here. So assessing what your three main meals look like. because it's very likely if we are hungry between meals, it might be because there's not enough protein, there's not enough vegetables in our main meals, maybe too many refined carbohydrates, that kind of thing. So if the balance is kind of misaligned, that can increase hunger. And then if it's not physical hunger, like, exploring that, because like you said, Faria, we're often snacking out of habit. And particularly, the office culture, the 3 p.m. Biscuit and a cup of tea, that kind of vibes. It's often that is just pure habit. Chocolate in front of the TV or crisps in front of the TV after dinner every night. I think that's a real common one. So I think just exploring that, not trying to fix it or like
Yeah.
it's just exploring it. Like, why am I doing this? Like, is it aligned to my new goals? I think that's a really good answer there. And Maria, what about you? What are your thoughts on that? And how would you work with someone on the program to help with this?
I think it's really important to understand that this really depends on our lifestyle and also daily schedule, because of course we are all different. So even if we have three main meals a day, they will look different for everyone. So what we recommend is really to listen to our hunger fullness cues. However, I understand that this might be difficult for many people, especially if we are not really used to do it. So when we say, "Are you really angry?" or perhaps it's the stress or another emotion, like sometimes it's difficult to get this understanding at the beginning. But it's really worth long term, because you really avoid the overeating, like snacking just because out of the habit rather than for actual hunger or not. And when it comes to a balanced snack, we typically recommend, if your meals are more than 5 hours apart, it's really good to include a balanced snack in between, because this allows you to keep your energy level stable and blood sugar level stable, and also avoid to overeating at the next meal. Avoid to arrive to the next meal really, really hungry,
Mm.
which can make difficult then to manage portion sizes, and in general to can help with moderation. So that's the main advice. And also, as Faria said, pairing protein, fats with carbohydrates, for example, fruit with the fat like nut butter, or yogurt with some berries, can really help to have a balanced snack which is satisfying and also filling.
Absolutely. So I think on the real practical sense of like, what does a balanced snack look like? Obviously, exploring everything you discussed around the balance and everything is all incredibly important. But in the real crux of it, like, what does a balanced snack look like? We would typically recommend one that's richer in protein, and it can still include some carbohydrates, like a piece of fruit. But we would recommend pairing that with protein, like yogurt and berries, or as you said, peanut butter with an apple, something like that. Because I think one thing often people reach for, and I delivered a talk last week actually for my running club, and I was talking, when people want energy, so between meals they're hungry and their energy levels are crashing, and maybe they've got low blood sugar, and they often think that eating energy in the form of sugar is going to give them energy, but actually does the opposite, which is it's this kind of like it's like a challenging thing to kind of explain, where actually food in its pure form of energy often does the opposite, and it doesn't provide us with energy because of its impact on dysregulating our blood sugar levels. It's like fascinating how the body works. But anyway, okay, guys, we're in the last 10 minutes. That was absolutely brilliant. Okay, so right, what more questions have we had coming in? We talked about snacks, talked about the balanced plate. I think we've got some. Okay, there's definitely. I think we should discuss fat as well. That we're getting some questions around full fat milk versus others. We're getting questions around cheese and using cream, and how does that impact our cardiovascular risk and things like that. So I think obviously within the balanced plate, we've got, as we've covered already, we have a minimum serving of one of fat in the size of your thumb. But there are meals and recipes within our app where there's more fat in it. So the butter chicken, I can think, is quite a high fat meal, and it's lower in carbohydrates. The fajita bake is quite rich in fat in that sense too. So let's discuss the whole fat thing. Is fat good for us? Is it going to clog our arteries? Maybe that's too complex to jump into for now. But let's think about the practical stuff. Let's think, okay, how to include fat in our diet, and I guess we can start with reassuring everyone. The fat from whole foods we recommend at Second Nature is very cardiovascularly safe. It is not going to increase cardiovascular risk, and there are many other things that will lead to cardiovascular risk factors outside of just diet. We can't get into that today, but in terms of a practical sense, Maria Faria, how do you support people, manage fat intake, include it in their meals? What are the practical sides around it? Because it can be quite difficult because we say fat the size of the thumb, but then we've got solid fats like avocado and nuts, and then we've got liquid fats. So yeah, maybe let's just discuss that for the last few minutes. And
I think firstly, it's important to say fats are not the enemy. I think a lot of it is like, oh, I think a lot of it's like how we were saying, like social media or like just the whole low carb or low fats, like, okay, this is low fat, therefore it must be good. But actual studies now are showing that the fat that we're eating, especially from like whole foods, like such as your avocados, your nuts and seeds, or your nuts butter and stuff like that, if it's less processed, then it's not going to impact on your blood sugar, and it's not going to impact on your like cholesterol levels in general anyway. So if you add these healthy sources of fats, things like avocados and stuff, then that's the best thing. And I would always say if you are going shopping, try and opt for whole fat foods. So for example, your full milks or your cheeses and stuff like that, as opposed to the low fat. Because if you actually read the labels, it's actually quite shocking, Robbie. Like if you actually read it and then you're like, this has got like I can't even pronounce these additives and preservatives because it's got the fats removed. So by going back to whole food basics, then you'll be more likely to eat natural foods that your body's fully ready to prepare, like process and everything, because it knows what this is, as opposed to a really highly ultra processed food of like a little low fat milkshake thing that it doesn't even know what it's doing. You'd rather make that milkshake at home. Like I had one member where I was coaching here, and then he like his wife, I think his wife preferred like what was it, low semi-skimmed milk, but he liked avocados and stuff. So then he was like, but how can I but how could I use that avocado, but then how could I make a milkshake then? Because if you're saying don't have semi-skimmed milk, then I said no, there's no reason. Like you can still add the avocado to your milkshake because that's still a high fat product, like that's still a good healthy fat. So now he's like experimenting with making that said milkshake with semi-skimmed milk and avocado and adding nuts and seeds, and he's loving it. So by adding like things like spinach and stuff, that's already boosting his fiber and everything. That's already sticking to the balanced plate model, and that way it's the best of both worlds. We're not saying if you don't like the taste of full fat milk, then we need to force it down you. No, like that word again, flexible. We can accommodate to what you need. So I think it's being practical with what you like, what your family likes, and really thinking about why you're adding this source of fat to your diet.
absolutely. Maria, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I want to just add that we often forgot that fats are really important for satiety as well and fullness, and they also help us to absorb nutrients, which is something that many people feel surprised when we recommend actually full fat products. But it's really important, for example, for some vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin D. So fat are absolutely an essential nutrient to include in our diet. And what I usually recommend is, of course, moderation around fats. And this is especially important because, some foods that contain fats, for example, dairy products, sometimes we include them as protein source in our balanced plate. So in this case, it's important to be mindful about including other fat source in the meal. So always look at the overall balance of your meal. Okay, so you have, for example, cheese as protein source, perfectly fine. Just be mindful if you're using olive oil or if you're using avocado, because that can actually make the meal very nutrient dense. So also other foods like, for example, nuts and nut butter are definitely absolutely fine as part of our balanced diet. They're also very good source of nutrients and vitamins and minerals, but it's easy to overeat if we don't really think about portion size and moderation. So we always recommend to, as you said, Robbie, at the beginning, in the toolbox in the Second Nature app, you always have the references, the portion sizes, and very, very good balanced plate visuals that you can use, especially for fats. And when I review food diaries, for example, I often share this because it's really helpful, especially if you don't want to weigh food or use any type of measurement, to have a visual guide so you can actually balance your page without overdoing it.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. So I guess in sum, Like fat is not the enemy. And I always, whenever I discuss fat, I always say it's quite ironic how fat is denser in energy, as in
Yeah.
per gram. There's more calories, and I think that's why people were kind of scared of it. And that was the message for 30, 40 years, right? Like fat is higher and denser in energy, so it's got to be bad for you. It lead to weight gain. But the ironic thing is, like you mentioned there, fat helps us feel fuller for longer. So ironically, by eating more energy dense fats and adding a bit more into our plate and having those having carbohydrates around 25% of our meals, we're more likely to maintain a lower level of overall intake because the fat is helping to provide us with that feeling of fullness. And like you said, Maria, it helps our body absorb essential fatty acid, essential nutrients, and vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K, as well. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, team, we are fast approaching 7 o'clock. I don't think we can answer any more questions, everyone. I'm really apologize if you've put in questions. You're really keen for us to answer them. I would say chuck them to your health coach. Well, maybe not chuck them, but put them forward to your health coach. They're there. If you're beyond the 9 month stage of the program and you no longer have direct access to your health coach, you've got your group, you've got the communities. All the communities are still led by a health coach too. So please reach out. I will just share one final thing. I don't know if anyone has seen this, but over the past couple of months, we have, the last month, I'm just going to share my screen. We have released a couple of new Sustain courses. So apologies for the exterior stuff. This is just Canva, but just focus on the slides. So we've got two new Sustain courses. One is called Preventing Diabetes, and it really looks at the first week. It goes into detail on what HbA1c is, how blood sugar is regulated in the body. And then in week 2, it looks at the balance plate model, how each part of the balance plate impacts our blood sugar levels, the carbohydrates, fats, protein, fiber. And it also looks at mindset and stress and sleep in week 3. And it covers some real practical strategies. So a new Preventing Diabetes course, absolutely brilliant. There's a new one as well. It was released last week called Navigating Setbacks. So if you're currently struggling and worried, how to get back on track with your healthy habits, that's also there. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 courses as well on weight loss plateaus, nutrition, motivation, sleep, exercise, stress, and mindset. And I'm currently updating these as well. So they are being refreshed over the next couple of months. So please keep an eye out. When they are updated, we will put a new tag of new so everyone's aware. If you're unsure how to access these Sustain courses, this is news to you. Like, wow, I didn't know these Sustain courses existed. Fair enough. We didn't do enough to provide you with that information. If on the home page of your app, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, this little button, it says Toolbox. You can head to, it will have this, and you will see either Sustain courses or 4-week programs, depending on whether you updated your app recently. Click on that, and then you'll see all of the 4-week Sustain courses here. You can choose the new one, and then you can select your start date. So if you don't want to start the next Monday, you're on holiday, you can select the start date after that. They're all 4 weeks. They all contain 3 articles a week, and everyone will have a dedicated community as well. The new ones don't have communities just yet, but you're welcome to ask questions in the communities as well. So if anyone's wondering about the communities, you can go to the chat function and you'll see the communities there. Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen. Anyway, Maria, Farihah, thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant. And your first webinars, your first Q&As, I think it seems like you both really enjoyed it. If not, you're hiding it really well. And for everyone who turned out, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I hope this has been helpful. And just to let you know as well, we haven't announced this yet, but we are doing another webinar. Oh, let me check my calendar very quickly. I'll let everyone know the date. We will be sending around an email, so I wouldn't worry about writing it down or everything, but let me just double check the date. So on Thursday, the 23rd of October, we're doing a webinar called Understanding Diabetes, where we'll look into the kind of physiology of diabetes, what's happening in the body, how the body regulates blood sugar. So just to kind of give you a deeper understanding of the condition. Obviously, this is a course for pre-diabetes, but we'll explain the whole spectrum of blood sugar and how it functions. We're also doing another webinar in November, focusing on the real practical stuff and the nutrition recommendations around reversing pre-diabetes and getting our blood sugar levels back into the normal range. Not sure what date that is, November the 6th. So anyway, don't worry about writing this down. We will be sending emails out. Final thank yous, Maria, for it. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much. And to everyone that turned out, over 250, absolutely mental. And I'm going to go rest my voice and have an early night, I think. All
Yeah.
right, team. Thanks so much. And
Bye.
we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.